Chapter 1. Technics as the Tactics of Living. Oswald Spengler, Man and Technics, a Contribution to a Philosophy of Life. Chapter 1. The problem of technics and its relation to culture and to history presents itself for the first time only in the 19th century. The 18th, with its fundamental skepticism, that doubt that was well nigh despair, has posed the question of the meaning and value of culture. It was a question that led it to ever wider and more disruptive questions, and so created the possibility of the 20th, for our own day, of looking upon the entirety of world history as a problem. The 18th century, the age of Robinson Crusoe and of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, of the English park and of pastoral poetry, had regarded original man himself as a sort of lamb of the pastures, a peaceful and virtuous creature, until culture came to ruin him. The technical side of him was completely overlooked, or, if seen at all, considered unworthy of the moralist's notice. But, after Napoleon, the machine technics of Western Europe grew gigantic, and, with its manufacturing towns, its railways, its steamships, it has forced us in the end to face the problem squarely and seriously. What is the significance of technics? What meaning within history? What value within life? What does it possess? Where, socially and metaphysically, does it stand? There were many answers offered to these questions, but at bottom these were reducible to two. On the one side, there were the idealists and ideologues, the belated stragglers of the humanistic classicism of Goethe's age, who regarded things technical and matters economic as standing outside, or rather beneath, culture. Goethe himself with his grand sense of actuality, had in Faust II sought to probe this new fact world to its deepest depths. But even in Wilhelm von Humboldt we have the beginnings of that anti-realist philological outlook upon history, which in the limit reckons the value of a historical epoch in terms of the number of the pictures and books that it produced. A ruler was regarded as a significant figure only insofar as he passed muster as a patron of learning and the arts. What he was in other respects did not count. The state was a continual handicap upon the true culture that was pursued in lecture rooms, scholars' dens, and studios. War was scarcely believed in, being but a relic of bygone barbarism, while economics was something prosaic and stupid and beneath notice, although in fact it was in daily demand. To mention a great merchant or a great engineer in the same breath with poets and thinkers was almost an act of lèse-majesté to true culture. Consider, for instance, Jacob Burckhardt's Weltgeschichte Betrachtungen. The outlook is typical of that of most professors of philosophy, and not a few historians for that matter, just as it is the outlook of those literates and aesthetes of today who view the making of a novel as something more important than the designing of an aircraft engine. On the other side, there was materialism, in its essence an English product, which was the fashion among the half-educated during the latter half of the 19th century, and the philosophy of liberal journalism and radical mass meetings, of Marxist and social ethical writers who looked upon themselves as thinkers and seers. If the characteristic of the first class was a lack of the sense of reality, that of the second was a devastating shallowness. Its ideal was utility, and utility only. Whatever was useful to humanity was a legitimate element of culture, was in fact culture. The rest was luxury, superstition, or barbarism. Now, this utility was utility conducive to the happiness of the greatest number, and this happiness consisted in not doing. For such, in the last analysis, is the doctrine of Bentham, Spencer, and Mill. The aim of mankind was held to consist in releving the individual of as much of the work as possible. Relieving. Wow. Excuse me. The aim of mankind was held to consist in relieving the individual of as much of the work as possible and putting the burden on the machine. Freedom from the misery of wage slavery, equality in amusements and comforts, and enjoyment of art. It was the panem et circenses of the giant city of the late periods that is presenting itself. The progress Philistine waxed lyrical over every knob that set an apparatus in motion for the supposed sparing of human labor. In place of the honest religion of earlier times, there was a shallow enthusiasm for the achievements of humanity, by which nothing more was meant than progress in the techniques of labor-saving and amusement-making. Of the soul, not one word. Now such ideals are not at all to the taste of the great discoverers themselves, with few exceptions, not even to that of the finished connoisseurs of technics. It is that of the spectators around them who themselves, it is that of the spectators around them. It is that of the spectators around them who themselves, incapable of discovering anything or anyhow of understanding it if they did, sense that there is something to their own advantage in the wind. And out of these conditions, since in every civilization materialism is distinguished by its lack of imaginative power, there is formed a picture of the future in which the ultimate object and the final permanent condition of humanity is an earthly paradise conceived in terms of the technical vogue of, say, the 80s of last century, which then was, of course, the 1800s. A rather startling negation, by the way, of the very concept of progress, which by hypothesis excludes states. This order of ideas is represented by books like Strauss's Alte und Neue Glaube, Bellamy's Looking Backward, and Bebel's Die Frau und der Sozialismus. No more war, no more distinctions of law, peoples, states, or religions, no criminals or adventurers, no conflicts arising out of the superiorities and unlikenesses, no more hate or vengeance, but just unending comfort through all millennia. Even today, when we are still living out the last phases of this trivial optimism, these imbecilities make one shudder, thinking of the appalling boredom, the tedium vitae of the Roman imperial age, that spreads over the soul in the mere reading of such ideals, of which even a partial actualization in real life could only lead to wholesale murder and suicide. Today, both views are out of date. At last, with the 20th, we have come to a century that is ripe enough to penetrate the final significance of the facts of which the totality constitutes world history. Interpretation of things and events is no longer a matter of the private tastes of individuals, of the rationalizing tendency, or of the hopes and desires of the masses. The place of the "it shall be so" and "it ought to be so" is taken by the inexorable "it is so, it will be so." A proud skepsis displaces the sentimentalities of last century. We have learned that history is something that takes no notice whatever of our expectations. It is physiognomic tact that I have elsewhere called it, namely the quality which alone enables us to probe the meaning of all happening, the insight of Goethe and of every born connoisseur of men and life and history throughout the ages, that reveals in the individual his or her deeper significance. Okay. Thank you.